April 11th, 1986, 8 FBI agents, 2 armed robbers, 5 minutes of gunfire in a quiet Miami suburb. By the time it ended, 2 agents were dead, 5 more were wounded, and every handgun, every round of ammunition, and every vest carried by an FBI agent since that day exists because of what went wrong in those 5 minutes. FBI agents that morning were carrying revolvers and early semi-automatic pistols, the standard for law enforcement at the time. They were tracking 2 suspects wanted for a string of armed robberies and killings, Michael Platt and William Matix, both former U.S. Army servicemen who had met years earlier at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Neither side expected what was about to happen. The agents were prepared for an arrest. The suspects were prepared for a war. When agents attempted to stop the suspect's vehicle, it collided with 2 of their cars. What followed was, at the time, one of the most violent shootouts in FBI history. More than 130 rounds exchanged in roughly 5 minutes at extremely close range. The agents were outgunned. Platt was carrying a Ruger Mini 14 rifle, chambered in a caliber built for accuracy and penetration at distance. A rifle round, not a handgun round. The agents, by comparison, were carrying revolvers and 9mm pistols designed for close-range stopping power, not for punching through a determined, moving target. What happened next became one of the most studied incidents in law enforcement history. Special Agent Jerry Dove struck Platt with a 9mm round early in the exchange, a hit that investigators later determined would likely have been fatal, but it didn't stop him immediately. Platt continued fighting for several more minutes, and in that time, Special Agents Benjamin Grogan and Jerry Dove were killed, and 5 other agents were wounded, before Special Agent Edmundo Mireles, wounded himself, ended the fight. The lesson that emerged wasn't about courage. Every account of that day describes agents who kept fighting despite being wounded. The lesson was about equipment. A bullet that wounds but doesn't incapacitate immediately can cost lives measured in minutes, not seconds. And in 1986, nobody had good data on which rounds actually stopped a threat fast enough. In the years that followed, the FBI conducted extensive testing to answer a question that had never been rigorously studied before. What actually stops a determined attacker reliably as fast as possible? The research led to new ammunition standards focused on penetration depth and energy transfer, eventually contributing to the development of what became known as the .40 S&W cartridge, still used by law enforcement agencies today. But ammunition was only half the answer. The other half was armor. The shootout accelerated the FBI's move toward mandatory soft body armor for agents in high-risk operations and pushed departments across the country to reconsider not just what officers carried, but what they wore. Body armor wasn't treated as optional protective equipment anymore. It became standard issue, non-negotiable gear. The same shift, driven by the same hard lesson that shaped modern law enforcement equipment policy nationwide. Did you know the switch from revolvers to semi-automatic pistols across American law enforcement, now the standard everywhere, traces directly back to this single incident? And did you know the tactical lessons from that morning are still taught at the FBI Academy today, nearly 40 years later, as a case study in equipment, ammunition selection, and threat assessment? Myth: the agents that day lacked courage or training. Reality: multiple agents continued fighting after being severely wounded, and every official review of the incident credits their actions with preventing further loss of life. What failed that day wasn't the people. It was equipment built for a threat nobody had planned for. Every element of a modern officer's standard issue kit, the semi-automatic pistol, the ammunition designed and tested for reliable stopping power, the body armor worn as a matter of policy rather than personal choice, carries a direct line back to a 5-minute gunfight in a Miami suburb in 1986. It's one of the clearest examples in modern law enforcement history of equipment evolving because lives were lost, not in spite of it. Special Agents Benjamin Grogan and Jerry Dove didn't live to see the changes their deaths helped bring about. But nearly every officer who has put on a vest, carried a semi-automatic sidearm, or trusted the ammunition in their weapon over the last 4 decades has, in some way, been protected by the lessons of that morning. That's the pattern behind almost every advance in protective equipment covered in this series. The gear gets better because someone, somewhere, paid the cost of finding out where it failed. Better ammunition and mandatory armor were only part of the answer. The other part was a question police departments are still refining today. How do you train for a fight nobody expects to happen? Next time on Behind the Armor, how modern tactical training was rebuilt from the ground up, and what it actually takes to prepare for the worst 5 minutes of someone's career.